said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? You know, you have no credibility. Please go ahead.
Get ready, folks. The constitutional crisis is here. And if you are wondering how it would play out, well, it's Donald Trump we are talking about. So more lies, deflection, and of course, attacking journalists as opposed to actually answering questions. Today, Trump hosted Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele at the White House, and there's a lot to unpack, right?
Very low IQ president. And by the way, I took my cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark. And one of the doctors said, "Sir, I've never seen anybody get that kind of, that was the highest mark." I hope you're happy with that. Although they haven't been bugging me too much to take a cognitive, but I did do my physical and it was released. I hope you're all happy with it. I noticed there's no question, so probably you are. But the cognitive, they said to me, "Sir, would you like to take a cognitive test?" I said, "Did Biden take one?" No. Did anybody take one? No, not too many people took them. I said, what about Obama? Did he take one? No, he didn't take one either. I said, let me be the only one to take one.
But when one of his remarks regarding deporting American citizens makes it as a headline on Rupert Murdoch's New York Post, well, you know it's as extreme as they come. Trump floated sending American citizens to Salvadoran prisons during a conversation with the Central American country's leader on Monday, suggesting he build, quote, 5 more facilities to make room. And while the comments are vile enough, listen to the response in the room.
Demanded the people wanted to change everything, and they wanted to. He demanded they love you, they love what you do. You know, I'm not here supporter. I want him to do, you know, for homegrown criminals next. Yeah. I said, homegrowns are next. The homegrowns built. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's big. All right. It's not big enough. No, yeah. Come on. So this is a much different office.
I guess the fascism will not only be televised, but met with roars of laughter. But as they fielded questions from reporters, Trump continued his spat with CNN's Kaitlan Collins after she dared to question why his administration is simply refusing to comply with a Supreme Court order. A visibly irritated Trump cut her off before attacking her credibility because, of course.
President Bukele to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported. The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, 2 courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him, President?
And you are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, you know, it's asked by CNN and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago.
But if the Supreme Court said bring somebody back, I would do that. I respect the Supreme Court.
And the lower court judge as well. He's been asking for daily
I'm not
updates
talking about the lower court. I have great respect for the Supreme Court. So I'm not totally well versed as to the specific case, but if they said to bring him back, I would tell them to bring him back.
And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You know, you have no credibility. Please go ahead.
President Trump.
And it's easy to see how Trump can just refuse point blank when this is the counsel he has around him.
Your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case, clearly, 9-0. a district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So he appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. The misreporting on this has been atrocious.
Okay,
Secondly,
I appreciate
he was
the
not, no, Bill's
clarification,
important.
that's the case.
He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador.
Okay, so do you still
He's an
believe he
illegal
is a
alien
member of
from
MS?
El Salvador. Hold on, this is important. In 2019, he was ordered deported. He has a final removal order from the United States. These are things that no one disputes. Where is he from? El Salvador. Where is he a resident and citizen of? El Salvador. Is he here illegally? Yes. Does he have a deportation order? Yes. A DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty, a saboteur, a Democrat, put into a filing incorrectly that this was a mistaken removal. It was not. This was the right person sent to the right place. Now, some have said, well, but he had a thing called a withholding order. So a withholding order means you've been ordered deported, but an immigration judge is saying you cannot go back to a particular country. Here's the thing. If you are a member of a foreign terrorist organization, you cannot have a withholding order. Since he's in MS-13, there is no withholding order.
You just answered my
question. The gang that he is accused of being persecuted by doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. The 18th Street gang is gone. So you have an illegal alien from Bill, where are we supposed to send the illegal alien from El Salvador?
You haven't even
to
allowed
what
me
country?
to ask you a question.
But here's the thing, right? Donald Trump is a master of smoke and mirrors. Truly, he is very good at it. And he doesn't care about the fire he starts as long as it means deflecting from how terrible of a job he's doing. Think about it, right? Signalgate a few weeks ago, like it never happened. Hard to worry about the Secretary of Defense drunk texting war plans when your 401k is depleting by the minute. Depleting, it still is, by the way. One rebound day won't make up for the catastrophe that was and still is his tariff rollout, which has been dubbed as a, quote, absolute chaotic mess. Not just by me, but Fox News of all places.
But to your point, Americans back the concept of a more level, fair trading field, but the execution of this, and I wanted to ask Daniel about this, the execution has been a morass. It's been an absolute chaotic mess so far, and the American people really haven't felt the pain of that yet. And is the pain based on talking to CEOs of companies that need these imports? Is the pain layoffs? Because that's what I'm hearing, that people are putting together layoff plans.
Absolutely. I see it. I hear about it. And even as a CEO of a company, we're thinking about it. Right now, we don't know what's going to happen because the game keeps changing, and it's changing in real time. But let me give...
In the immediate, we see 3/4 of Americans think that tariffs will raise prices, at least in the short term, and a lot think in the long term too. Now, they're sensitive to that because, as we've discussed for many years, inflation and prices are top concerns, right? The second thing we see is an increase in the number of people who think that Donald Trump's policies now are making them financially worse off. And it's not just that movement, but it's the setup against expectations. Back at the start of his term a few months ago, a lot of people thought that his policies would make them financially better off.
Now this, a comment so extreme, it'd likely be the end of any elected official's career, but not Trump's, of course. Just more fuel to that flame so that we perhaps stop talking about him literally denying the unanimous decision of a Supreme Court. But it won't happen. Not here. We will continue to discuss it.
What was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
no version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it per the court can only be directed to him.
I asked President
Bukele,
can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.